I think it's absolutely fantastic that we're having Sibos first time in Beijing, in China. Sibos is all about payment systems and how they connect, basically how we move money around the world. And we know that the movement of money is becoming increasingly fragmented over different channels. We know that geopolitical tensions come into play in terms of the use of US dollars versus the internationalization of the RMB, et cetera. But SWIFT which is at the heart of Sibos, Global Payment Network. SWIFT is the connector between all these different platforms. So ideally, as we roll this out over time, will allow innovation to go full speed ahead in whatever works best for the different people who are moving money or moving goods or moving services. But we'll have that in an interoperable way so that the payment system, domestic payment systems can communicate with each other, so that perhaps a payment system that's based on a central bank digital currency can work interoperably with a payment system that's using fiat currencies, which is what SWIFT is doing today. And so I think that's a lot of what is being discussed in these halls at Sibos. But it's also tremendously important that this is being hosted in China at a time when China is opening up to the world so fundamentally. Of course, this has been going on for decades, but we really see China and the RMB coming into its own. So the very strong message, and we heard it from the mayor and from the deputy governor of the PBOC this morning, the very strong message that China is here to be an integral part of the global financial system is really reassuring.
So what kind of opportunities do you think exist for Standard Chartered when it comes to China continuing to reform and open up its capital markets, its financial markets, as China continues to modernize?
So that is the very heart of what Standard Chartered does in China. So we were set up 170 years ago to be a connector in those days, between Asia and the rest of the world. And some of our biggest operations and biggest volumes of transactions are happening intra-Asia, so between China and ASEAN countries, or South Asia, Middle East, Africa. And the more the RMB opens up, internationalizes, is used as a currency of trade. We know that well over half of Chinese trade now is denominated in RMB. So facilitating these payments cross-border is at the heart of what we do. The more China opens up, the more opportunity there is for us to serve our clients in this opened up market. So we've enjoyed tremendous growth in China over the past 10 years or so. We see that continuing for many years to come.
So Bill, according to SWIFT's RMB tracker, the Chinese currency is now the fourth most actively used global currency when it comes to payments. How do you see the evolution of the Chinese RMB going forward?
I think as a currency for settling trade, RMB will continue to increase. China is obviously the largest trading partner in the world, generally, but also for most of the major trading counterparts. China is their major trading partner. China, as the RMB becomes easier to use for international transactions, it will be used because, of course, Chinese companies have a preference to execute in RMB, and increasingly the rest of the world is either accumulating RMB or borrowing RMB in order to settle their Chinese trade. The PBOC and others, when we heard this morning, need to take some steps to make it even easier to use RMB. For starters, we need to develop a really strong offshore market for RMB denominated instruments. So we know that for the RMB to continue with its internationalization, it's not enough just to be the world's leading trading counterparty. You also need to put the facilities in place and have the instruments out there that make it easier for people to use RMB in their day-to-day life.